Okay, the door gap journey begins. So this is going to be at least one or two videos on getting the door gaps on the C3 as good as I can. And my plan is, well, first I want to show you the issue. So one of the issues is this door gap is okay at the bottom, but it's a little open at the top, right? So I want to close this part. My goal is to get the back of the door here lined up properly, and then if I don't have to change any of this on the door, that would be great. That's my first goal. Then if I can do that, I'll come over here and I will address this gap probably by changing the fender part, because the fender part is not in the best shape, I don't think. I feel like I want to use the door first, because the door is nice, the lines are nice, and it's also finished on the inside. So I want to use the door and match the fender to the door. And the way I'm gonna try to adjust this is, and I'll show you more later when I have this apart, is there's two places that you can adjust this. One is the hinges that attach to the body, of course, and there's 4 bolts that hold each hinge. So these can be adjusted, but these can basically just be moved forward and backwards. Then inside here, you can see that there's 4 bolt locations, and there's a little bit of wiggle room. And you can use those to adjust the rotation of the door. You can also use those to move the door a little bit up and down. So the hinge connectors on the door, you can move this way, and then thereby you can move this way a little. I guess on the, what is that, Y-axis? I don't know. And the hinges on the car that attach to the door, so the hinges to the A, I don't know if that's the A pillar or that, this is the A pillar, I don't know what the names are, but the frame, those move this way. So I've got to figure out the combination of hinge placement and also door placement, door attachment, that will get this where I want it. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is assess the gaps and see how much work is needed. Hopefully not much. And this goes for both sides. So that's what we're gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do as much as I can. And we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's look at the factors that are important for finishing this adjustment. One is this, which is the door to the body in the back. This is adjusted pretty well, right? This is pretty level. That's where you want that. So this has to be, this corner has to be there, height-wise. So for that to happen, and for the gap to close here and not close down here, right? This is about what I want to end up with. So what I need to do is rotate this door clockwise a tiny amount. But if I just lower this part to close this, then it's going to be too low, right? So then I have to raise this area, which means I have to raise the entire door up. So there's basically one way to do that, and that is with these bolts. You can see that there's a tiny bit of play left. I can go up a little bit, but not much. This one, well, that's the bottom. That doesn't have to go, well, it does have to go up because the whole door has to go up. So, and you can see up here, you see where the old bolt mark was? So it was already, the door was already pretty high up. So if I can't get the door raised up enough, I can try to go here and raise the hinge. I'm gonna take this door off, I'm gonna take the hinge off, and we're gonna see how high up I can get these hinges. if I can't get this door high enough with the existing holes, I might have to go in and open these holes up a little, these slots, which is not a super big deal. I don't want to be grinding on this car too much. You know, it should be able to be adjusted the way it is, but we're going to do what we have to do to get this thing adjusted. So that's the plan right now, is take the door off, take the hinge off, and see how we can do. Okay, the hinges are off. I just wanted to show you what this looks like. So this is the top, this is the bottom. These are spacers or shims that go in between the hinge and the frame, and those sit in here. When I took this apart, there were 3 on the bottom and 1 on the top, but I'm gonna probably change that because the door on the bottom was sticking out too far, and the door on the top was not, it was in too much. So I'm gonna switch that up. I'm probably gonna start off with 2 up here and 1 down here, and I might go to none down here. Just depends on where we end up. The other factor is when you move the door up and down, you're also changing that relationship, because if you move the door up, then it's gonna end up coming out more with relation to the fender. So there's a lot of things at play in here. By the way, all the bolts that you use for this are 9/16. These are the same. They're the same bolts that work for the hinges, that go on the hinges, as that do go in the door. So it's 9/16. I just clean these up a little on with a flap disc sander, or a sanding mop, actually, not a flap disc, sanding mop, just to clean that up. Of course, you want to clean everything. I've also put rust treatment, Permatex rust inhibitor on all of these parts. I know they don't look super clean, but these all have rust inhibitor on them, and they're cleaned up a bit. So I'm going to put the hinges back on now, and I'm going to move them as far up as I can, and then I'm going to make sure that the hinges are parallel before I mount the door back on. Okay, so I've reattached the hinges. I put 2 spacers on the top one, and I actually went with no spacers on the bottom, and we'll see how the door lines up. And then I literally took a level and I just lined it up in the back with the holes across the middle, and I just checked where it ended up, and I did that on both hinges. I know it's not the best way to do it. I could probably make a tool that I could bolt in here, and then I could see if they match, but you know, they look close, and hopefully they are pretty close. If I have to, I'll make something. I'll just get a metal rod or something so I can check the level alignment, but they seem parallel to me, and I'm going to go ahead and bolt the door back on, and then we'll see if I have enough play in the door to get the rear gap right. Okay, so I've got the door back on, and what I'm doing right now is I've got the door all the way up as high as it'll go, essentially, given the mounting holes. So the door is raised up vertically, and I've got a couple bolts in each hinge, and then I've got this hinge is all the way back. This bottom hinge is in the middle position, but this hinge is all the way towards the back of the car, because my goal was to close this gap, right? So let's see what happens right now. And this is just to see if there's enough range here. And so it's hitting right here, which tells me that I do have enough range, you know, to move it back. But I have to raise it up. I have to move the hinge forward a little bit. And the question is, if I start doing that, am I gonna open up this gap again right here? Is this gonna be too big? Because obviously the door has to fit. That's the number one priority. This part has to fit if it turns out later that the gap is too big and there's no way I can get this back far enough, then I have to add material to this, which I will do, but I'm trying to avoid having to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to rotate this door this way by probably shoving that hinge, the top hinge here, I'm going to move it forward. And then I'm going to try to leave everything else as it is and just shove this forward and see what happens. Okay, so here's where we're at right now. It's improved a bit. However, there was a casualty, which is okay. I know this is going to be a process. I think this door point here is a little too pointy. So when I get into shaping this and evening this out, I can address it. I do need more shims on the bottom. It is true, because I did move the door up. And like I said, if you move the door up, you're going to have this part moving in and this part moving out. So now I have to go back, take the shims out, because now this part, now the top of the door here is too far out and the bottom is too far in. But back here, I think even though this is a tiny bit wide, you know, I can live with this. This is not bad. So I managed to I did manage to bring the back of the door a little closer. And so even though it's not perfect, you know, to me that's acceptable. It's fine. It's not worth it to me at this point to redo the back of the door just to get this, you know, this part a little bit tighter. It's okay. Not the end of the world. And actually, if the door starts sagging, if it starts sagging down, it's actually going to help that gap over there. So it'll move in the right direction. What I do need to do is get the shims, get the door shimmed in and out properly, which unfortunately means I have to take the hinges off, but I'm going to mark their position before I do that. And then I will reassemble this, try to get that all set, and then I'll start marking, you know, where I have it bolted onto the door and so forth. And then I can, once I have all that marked so I can reapply it, reposition it, then I'll start dealing with the fiberglass. All right, something I just did to give myself a little more leeway is I used this hole drill, step drill, to open up those holes just a tiny bit, right? Just to give me a little more room for adjustment of the door, you know, this way, back and forth. And then I put the hinges back on. First I marked their position with some tape and some lines, remounted them. That is a strong spring. I'm gonna double check their alignment, but they should be pretty good. And I have no spacer in the top now, and I have 2 in the bottom. So we'll see how this works. Put the door back on and check it. All right, we're back, and look at this. Now, I realize these are not the tightest gaps, but I did manage to move the bottom a little bit towards the front, and then I got this a little tighter. So really, you know, it's getting there. And then look at the front. I took a little bit off of here on the point because it was too pointy. But look at this, you guys. I mean, we're so close. We're so close. This is really not bad. I think what I'm going to do is work with the door adjustment a tiny bit more, but I mean, we're really pretty much there. I mean, I don't know if I even want to mess with this. I might just go ahead and deal with, like, right here, it gets really tight. So I might, you know, open that up on the fender side, deal with this little area, but you know, it's so much better. As far as, let me see, As far as the inward and outward position, the door itself is good on the lower position. I think that's good. That's 2 shims. And then on the upper position, also good, you guys. See that? Ah, yes. Success. So I think what made the difference was the little bit that I opened up those hinge holes, because it just allowed me to get the door a little higher in the front, which allowed me to get it aiming down. You know, it allowed me to rotate it this way a tiny bit, and that closed this gap, and it opened up this, which is kind of what I want. So, you know, if I match the middle, that's actually good. So I might actually open up those a little more and try to really dial this in, because if I could do that, yeah, I don't have much work to do on here. Just maybe, you know, maybe adding, or not, or just leave it like this. Just, you know, to me, that's okay. It's pretty acceptable, but I'll touch it up. You know, I'm going to do a little tiny bit, just to make the gaps even, because I think if they're even if they're a little wide, that's okay. It's better than tight and uneven. You know what I'm saying? All right, guys. I'm going to work a little more and then try to dial this in and then tackle the passenger side. Okay, here is where we're at, you guys. These pieces of tape, by the way, are the high point of the door, and what I did to get that is just I held a metal ruler. I mean, you can use anything, but I held a metal ruler up and just lightly scraped it along the door and the fender, and then I put a piece of tape on the line. You can see there's a little line, and now they're pretty much lined up. And look what else is pretty good. Hey now. So the back is kind of the same. I mean, it's totally acceptable. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Not perfect, but totally acceptable. So I just checked the gaps. Now, people like to argue about gaps and measurements and crap, but basically the number that I saw come up was 3/16, ideally, which is like a loose paint stick. Paint stick's actually 1/8 of an inch, so it's 2/16, it's not 3. This is 3.5/16, just a piece of wood that I have. But if I put this up here, you can see that so this would be the gap right here. That's kind of standard. That's what you're looking for. This is all good, and then whoop, we fell in. Oh, we're out the rest of the way. So there's a little bit like right in here that I feel like is hardly worth even building up. And then what I might do is just match this, like take this line here back a little. You can see that that needs a little attention. So I might just open this up right here just to kind of smooth out this line so it's not so obvious. Maybe I can squeeze another millimeter height out of there. In the back, we're starting off pretty much right there, pretty tight, and then it opens kind of far up. Well, not far, but a little, and then we're back here. So from here down, and then it gets back to probably the standard gap or tighter. So, you know, maybe a little tiny bit more tweaking. I'm not going to do it right now. What I'm going to do is call this good, and then just give, you know, a little bit of attention right in here. Probably have like a paint stick or a wedge, like a door gap wedge with a piece of sandpaper, and just try to even that out, and then do the bottom. And that's it, you guys. I'm not gonna fill these. I'm totally happy with this. And it was just a matter of basically getting the hinges and the shims on the hinges, putting the hinges forward and backward, getting that set, then hanging the door. And I did have to drill out the door holes a little with, and I use this tool on an extension, and that did it. So I will, of course, I'll go and I'll primer the metal parts that I drilled so they don't rust, and I'm so happy I don't have to add material to the fenders. I'm just going to smooth that out. So I hope this video has been helpful. If you do need to add material, there's some other people that have made videos about that. You can use fiberglass, you can use other kinds of, you know, short strand reinforced body fiberglass reinforced body filler, or whatever you want, other kinds of materials. But hey man, you guys, thanks for hanging out on this journey. I'm going to do the passenger side, but I'm assuming it's going to be pretty much the same. So I might add that to this video, probably not, but yeah, we're getting close to paint. Thanks for watching.